Suzanne Roberts, secret to a long, productive life. Well, she says you have to stay active and inquisitive. So Suzanne Roberts is a woman full of talent and creativity. And at 93 years old, this grandmother of 8 and matriarch of the Comcast family, her husband, Ralph, founded Comcast in 1969, and her son, Brian, is currently the CEO. Anyway, she's leading the way on what it means to be an active senior citizen through her dedication, hard work, and passion to give back to the community. This beautiful woman that I'm looking at right now in Boomer Times, she's really spent a lifetime of helping others. So tell us all about what you're doing now, Suzanne.
Well, first of all, you might want to know why and how I happened to start the show. I had been doing a great deal of acting during the years. So it never occurred to me to even bother to turn on television to see what was happening. But when as I got older, close to 85, I began to think, I'm worried that I will blow my lines next play. Because, I'd always been so sure of how to go about attacking a role on stage. But I was now getting older, and I was worried that I might forget a line or two. So I decided after this play, whatever that play was, I'm going to turn off the theater as far as acting is concerned and find something else. I've always been a person who believes in doing, not just watching or sitting back. It's always been important to me. So I watched television to see where it was at this point. By the time I was close to 90, no, earlier than that, I would say close to 80, I watched television and I thought, my goodness, there isn't a program on designed for people anywhere near 80. I mean, if you watched Oprah, she'd be the one that would be the most likely to fill that gap. But even so, I've attended her show in person on a couple of occasions and seen that there's nobody near 80 in the audience. They're all in their 40s, 30s, 50s, and that about, that's a lot of people. But nothing from people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and up. So I decided that I think I'm going to try and dream up a show that's designed for this group of people who haven't something that's really significant in their world. So, being that I was in my early 80s, I'd lived a lot of years and I could pick up a number of subjects in my head that I thought would be of interest because that's the age bracket that I filled. So I spent a lot of time designing a program. And the next step was presenting the idea to someone. So I made that someone my husband. I know, I didn't tell him. So I said, the opening line of what I showed him was, darling, I've been watching television and I cannot find a show on television that would be suitable for an audience over 45 or 50. The others are the quick advertisements, the quick language that the young people have, and that's not going to be of interest very long to older people. So I've worked up 60 different ideas for you to look at, knowing the dearth of programs for people over 45 or 50. And I showed it to him. And he said, I think you're on to something.
Yay.
Something that's worthwhile. I will introduce you to the people at Comcast who would maybe be interested in this idea, and that they might include something on their schedule to discuss about designing the program for older people. But Suzanne, remember, I'm not going to ask them to put up the money in their budget for you unless they want it. They were not to think of me and Ralph and push it, because he said that it would be taken off the agenda of the 45, it would be taken off the agenda of their consideration. So I thought, well, that's pretty good. I've got my husband's ears. He's now going to introduce me. And they had 60-some programs to look at. And they were all excited about the idea. There was nothing else like any of the programs. So I'd like to have the woman who is the director and the producer of the show, and then she and I, for the last 14 years, have discussed each and every program that has gone on around the country at this point. And it started with just the local TV shows, the local Comcast channel, that it spread to further areas and ended up being a national show across the country and in many, many areas.
Suzanne, I must interrupt you to tell you that I am in Florida and I've seen you.
Wait just a minute.
I have seen you in Florida.
And now we just very recently added RLTV, which is, there's 40 million people as of now, 40 million, 14 years later, and we've done over 1,000 shows. And we have RLTV, we have the local Comcast Channel 8, at least that's in Philadelphia, and we have had a couple of years with CNN headline news, and now we're always expanding our horizons, staying alive, trying things, even if you can't. The idea is try things, I say to the viewers. Stay active, trying things, even if you're lousy at doing it and you can't be trained very well. If you enjoy trying and you keep your minds active, that's the bottom line, or the top line, I should say, of the program. Now we're hoping to distill people's fears about having medical procedures, because we're all getting older. I happen to have gotten up to 93, and by having these procedures that I personally need at this point, I've decided I'm going to have them myself. those that can be done on TV so that I can encourage other people. Go to your doctor. Find out what's the matter. Don't miss a year and say, oh, I hurt like crazy. I keep getting my hurts here and there, but I don't know what to do about them. I show them things such as cataract operation. That's brought a lot of male response. People, mainly men, are afraid of having people mess around with the eye for fear they'll hit the brain or they'll go blind. But it's a wonderful operation, and we have the doctor who performed it do it on television. And this program was done with me as the patient, and I went to see him the very next day, as he said I had to do. And he said to me, when I sat in the chair in his office, he said, well, what do you think of the operation? And I said, well, I walked out of your office and I thought, I've never seen my eyes look so good. I can see everything. So I'm very pleased until I got up the next morning and looked in the mirror and saw all these little things on my face, little pimples, sort of little holes here and there. So maybe you'd better put my eyes back the way they were. And that brought in a lot of, laughter in the notes, but a lot of response from men saying, you've encouraged me to go see an eye doctor because I'm having problems. I've had the same response from hearing. You know that I'm somewhat hard of hearing. But for those people who have this problem, I want them to realize there's lots they can do in going. Don't put it off and be afraid of it. That's my approach for this year's programs. Having things done to me, permitting the audience to see things let's see, I had an endoscopy. That means something's put down your throat to your stomach, and the doctor was a specialist, and you could see this whole operation. Of course, I was out. I never saw it until it was on the air. Macular degeneration, that's another thing. I'm shooting that next week. Now, when they see that, they'll see a needle going into the retina, which is beyond the eye. And I come out of the office 10 minutes later. I'm not out. And this is a very common ailment of older people. But I've met them in the waiting room often and see they say, don't you hate this? I mean, it's so painful. So that's when I decided that I needed to do this publicly. Yes, it is painful. And you don't have any sedation other than a local into the eye. But when he puts the needle in, it's a fraction of a second that it's over. So I turn to the audience, at least I'm telling you before I do it. I will turn to the audience and say, yes, I felt it. Yes, if you allow it to be painful, yes, you can say it hurts. But who can't stand hurt for half a second 3 years. Now, the way I handle it is I go back to my theatrical training. And when I was in New York for a year going to acting school, which was my first love, I took a course that has to do with how do you handle emotions on stage? How do you prevent yourself from crying? How do you allow yourself to laugh under certain circumstances? So when I took that course, I learned to objectify, make it objective. If it hurts you, it's not ouch, it hurts me. It's, oh, I have that feeling. Yes, it's a feeling. It's not an emotional one. It's not personal. So I'm going to talk about that after I've done this a session having macular degeneration. And I've got a number of other subjects to discuss with my great friend Kelly and see if it's wise to do them publicly. So we'll go on now to some of the people. Would you be interested in hearing about?
Yes, tell me about some of the people.
On the show?
Yes.
Well, I don't know who I'd put first, but maybe in today's world I'd say Dr. Mehmet Oz. He has a huge number of people who watch his shows, and now he's even come out with a magazine called Dr. Oz. And he's been on my show 3 times, and that's been exciting. I've had Carol Channing on the show, Dr. Ruth, Elaine Stritch, who died recently, Pauline Trigere, Tony Curtis, let's see, I'm trying to think, we've got Patricia Neal, Kitty Carlisle Hart, and the wonderful designer, clothing designer I'm skipping now.
Suzanne, wait, Suzanne, let me ask you a question. What do they talk about when they're on your show with you?
Oh, well, for the most part, we discuss how did they get where they are or were, and how did they develop their talent, whatever it may be, medicine, fashion, and this list goes on indefinitely. Oleg Cassini is the designer. He has died also. Many people who remember our famous Kennedy president's wife, Jackie O, he was the designer for just about everything she ever wore. And he became internationally famous after the things he designed for Jackie O. Now we, of course, had some sports people like Dick Vermeil, and I've had him on for 2 entirely different reasons. He was firstly, the great football coach, and and he and his wife were on the show for what encompasses a successful marriage for many, many years. He and his wife have been married for maybe 40 years by now, and they've been through a lot together. A look, I've been married 73 years now, and I'd be a liar if I said this marriage was successful because we just lived together. No, we practiced like everybody else during the difficult times and lived through them. So many young people today have an argument or something and they're split, and they don't come back together to try to even think of working it out. That's the difference, maybe, of my age group. That's not exactly true, because I can think of plenty of people my age who had fights and you wondered would they ever get back together. Most of them did, because they came from that era where divorce was a dirty word and you stuck it out. Now, I wouldn't ever say I stuck it out. I'd say I'm closer to my husband and he to me than ever, because we each are going through things now. But the biggest thing we go through is our caring and our love, and that's very important.
And I wanted to, Suzanne, something that we didn't talk about, but I want everyone to know that working with children has been a cornerstone of your life. You got international recognition for your landmark therapy with Navajo children suffering from emotional disorders. You designed unique methods to build the individual's self-esteem, emphasizing their abilities rather than their disabilities. So you have always been a caring and, I would say, innovative person. And now what I admire about you is that you're taking who you are with all your experience, 93 going on 100, and you're sharing it with society, and that's what makes me tell you that you are definitely a hero.
Yeah, that's terrific. I really thank you for bringing that aspect up. We've been lucky to have 5 kids. We've lost 1. And this is incredibly sad. But another one I know just went through grief. He lost his brother. This is a man, an eminent doctor from India. And he and his brother were very close. But, and I said in my letter about his grief, the only thing I can tell you is that time helps to heal. And in addition to time, your remembrance of the good times you had together is so important that you can get back to the positive ends that death has left you about your brother. I thought that way when my child died at age 50 of a heart attack. And, you know, it makes no difference if they're 50 or 5. Death is death. And dealing with it is personal, but I just say a few words here and there, which I have said now, too many words, about everything, but even death. Or for those of us who, you know, when we were younger, we went through entirely different problems that we had to solve. And that's where I am. And working with the Navajos, again, that's a subject that's of very deep interest to me. When our children, and they're all within 10 years of each other in age, when the children, we used to take them on our vacations and on their vacations from school. In other words, during the summer, to some kind of fun place and things to do, like Disney World oh my God, did they love that. And other kinds of places, climbing mountains, going to the ocean, all those things were fun. But when they got to be about 7 and up to 17, my husband and I thought it was time to think about taking them on a vacation where they could feel that they're giving back something to someone, giving back to others who were far more needful than they were. So we planned a trip, and all of us agreed on where it was. We went out to the Navajo Reservation in Arizona. Oh, they got excited about that. They're going to meet Indians. And in those days, the Indians wore their outfits, to a lot of ceremonial occasions. And they got excited, and we went out there, and I thought, well, this is going to be fun in their minds. It's not going to be a giving. It's going to be a taking. But, when we got there, we were each one assigned to a different job. And little ones, they herded sheep with the grandmothers of the people they saw. And they saw the little kids fall off the sheep and picked up by the grandmother and helped. That was something I remembered vividly, because I was assigned to work in the first and only Navajo hospital that had a department for psychiatrically ill people. And I went there, and I looked around, and there seemed to be nothing that was happening. There were doctors, but they were accustomed to sophisticated Eastern clients, which has nothing to do with the lifestyle of the ill Navajo or Indian clients. And so I thought up some ideas, and the ideas I thought up were so simple. They were putting pots and pans in the middle of a circle, and then taking spoons and knives and forks and beating them to the sound of their music, which I listened to every day that I was in that hospital. It was very atonal, very difficult to listen to. But they didn't think it was difficult. It was home music to them. But I picked up an instrument, we'll call it, a pot, a pan, and I took a spoon and I beat it against the pot or pan while the music was playing, as I heard it, which might be very different than the way they heard it. And then I passed the pot or pan and the noisemaker, the spoon, to the person sitting next to me. And then I picked up another one, and I passed it to the person sitting on the opposite side, until everyone in the little circle of 8 or 10 people had a noisemaker. And I never, ever looked at them, because I noticed if you look at a person who doesn't like you, you lose them before you start. So I knew these people don't like Americans, and that they resented our being there at that point. And in their resentment, I thought, don't dare look at them. They will turn their eyes down, look at the floor, and you've lost them. So never looking at them, I beat my music. I beat my instrument to the music I was playing Then I turned the music up and played it louder, and I could hear little giggles from them. Then I turned the music down, and they turned their music down and giggled louder. So then I stood up and moved to the feel of the music, and they stood up and they started moving to the feel of the music. And I saw we were beginning to truly make non-verbal contact. They were showing, they were doing what came naturally. And after several weeks together, we had very strong non-verbal communication. And they used a lot of techniques where they knew I was being honest with them. Like I asked them, I had an interpreter, understand, because the Navajos don't speak English, and I didn't speak Navajo. So I had an interpreter who spoke both. And I asked him to translate the following. I said, tell me, what does the rain sound like when it beats down on your hogan? The hogan is the name of their mud hut where they live. So, and they don't accept Americans into their in this environment where they live. So they knew in advance that my question had to be honest, but I couldn't possibly know what the rain sounds like when it pours down on the mud hut. So they began to show interest, that I'm not a liar, in other words. And I asked them several questions where they could even reinforce that feeling that they know I don't know the answers to the questions I'm asking. I still hadn't looked at anybody, but I had seen at the beginning a woman who wrapped herself in a robe and a sweater and maybe another sweater over that and blankets over her. And she held herself so tightly and looked at the ground, never looking up at anything. But she had injured herself in the arm. She had been shot, or she shot herself. No one seemed to know the answer because the doctors didn't know how to contact her because she didn't speak the same language, and she ignored them. Well, I sat on the chair next to her chair, and the interpreter said that I was pretending that I was the little child, like my sons had been with little children, with the grandmother, and that she would be the grandmother. I would be the little child on the chair. And then after a few minutes of rocking on that chair, I fell off it. And I cried and cried. Now, don't forget, I had a lot of theater experience, so I learned how to, so to speak, fake tears, fake the crying. But I was, playing a role. And suddenly this woman threw off the robe and the not the nightgown, the robe and the sweaters everything that was covering her up, and took her arms out and pulled me around to her, took me off the floor as she came down, and we hugged each other. And I thought, my goodness, isn't this amazing? This woman no longer is exposed with her arm with any kind of a shot or any problem. But she's hugging me as a little child. And we rocked back and forth. And I thought, now what do I do? And I just decided if I try to kiss her in thanks as a child, she may hit me. Because I don't know, I'm not acquainted with her, what happens when such a problem occurs. So I took my cheek and I put it against her, and we sort of hummed away together. My thought being that this is my way of showing her we are both helping each other.
Suzanne, I'm going to stop you here because I would like to have you back another time on this show. I mean, we went way over, but I could not stop you. You are incredible, what you've done. I know our listeners would love to hear more from you, so I'm going to say goodbye for now, and then I'm going to call, and we're going to reschedule for more.
I got that, yeah.
Okay?
Say goodbye. I should have made it much easier.
No. It was mesmerizing. I loved it, and I'm going to call you again, and we're going to do more of this, okay?
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you. You are truly an amazing woman.
Bye-bye.
Very good. You did a great job. So she wants to have you back on again. Oh, something's still on.
I said it's truly an amazing woman, and you can stop. And I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to pull in